everybody, my name is Bao, and today I'm going to tell you about Merry Christmas, Curious George.
It's Ani. Are you ready for a Christmas story about Curious George?
Today we're going to read a Christmas story about Curious George.
Today we're going to read Merry Christmas, Curious George.
Today we're going to read Merry Christmas, Curious George.
If you have a copy, go get it so you can follow along with
If you have a copy, go
us.
Go get it, and so you can go along.
Annie's house!
Annie's house.
Merry Christmas, Curious
Merry Christmas, Curious George.
George, written by Kathy Hapka.
Written by Kathy Hapka.
Illustrated in the style of H.A. Ray by Mary.
Illustrated in the style of H.A. Ray by Mary
O'Keefe
Young.
Young. This is George. He lived with his friend, the man with a yellow hat.
This is George. He lived with a man in a yellow hat.
He was a good little monkey
He was a good little monkey
and always very curious.
and always very curious.
Today, George was visiting a Christmas tree
Today, George is visiting a Christmas tree
farm.
You can help me pick out the perfect tree for our home.
You can help me pick out the perfect tree for our home.
His friend told him.
His friend told him,
Keep close to me while we look.
keep close to me while we look.
George promised to be good, but little monkeys sometimes forget.
George promised to be good, but little monkeys sometimes forgot.
The Christmas tree farm had more trees than George had
The Christmas tree farm has more trees than George had
ever seen. He found a very nice one right
He found a very nice one right
away, but then another caught his eye,
But then another caught his eye.
and then one
And then one more.
more, and then another.
And then another.
George was curious.
George was curious.
How many Christmas trees could there be?
How many Christmas trees could there be?
George could not resist climbing
George could not resist climbing
up the tallest tree
the tallest tree
to get a better view.
to get a better view.
He looked for the man with the yellow hat.
Look for the man with the yellow hat.
But his friend was nowhere in sight.
But his friend was nowhere in sight.
Two men tromped into the clearing.
Two men jumped into the clearing.
There's our tree.
There's our tree,
One man told
one man told
the other.
the other.
The men cut down the tree and loaded it onto
The man cut down the tree
a truck,
and loaded it onto a truck,
along with George.
along with George.
George held on tightly.
George held on tightly.
He saw the man with the yellow hat as the truck
He saw the man with the yellow hat as the truck drove away.
drove away, but the truck was going
But the truck was going too fast.
too fast. George could not
George could not jump off.
jump off. He was scared, but still a little
He was scared, but still a little curious.
curious. Soon the truck stopped in front of a hospital.
Soon the truck stopped in front of the hospital.
George peeked out of the branches
George peeked out the branches
as the men carried his tree inside.
as the man carried his tree inside.
The hospital was a busy place.
The hospital was a busy place.
George jumped out of the tree.
George jumped down the tree.
There was lots here to see and do.
There was lots here and lots to see and do.
He looked at some interesting
He looked at some interesting pictures.
pictures. He found a jacket and tried it on.
He found a jacket and tried it on.
He played on a trampoline.
He played on the trampoline, which is actually just a bed.
He even went for a ride on a speedy little cart.
He even ride on a speedy little cart.
What fun!
Oh, what fun!
Then George spotted something
Then George spotted something
very interesting.
very interesting.
His tree. George knew
His tree.
that Christmas trees were supposed to have tinsel and twinkling
George, a Christmas tree was supposed to have tinsel and twinkling,
lights and shiny ornaments.
and lights and shiny ornaments.
But this tree was empty.
But this tree was empty.
George thought and thought, and
George thought and thought.
then he had an idea.
Then he thought of an idea.
Do you see what George's idea
Do you see what was George's idea was? Just right.
was? He decorated the Christmas
He decorated the Christmas
tree
tree
with all the things he found around the hospital.
with all the things he found around the hospital.
Next, George noticed a pile of gifts
Next, George found a pile of gifts
in the corner of the room.
in the corner of the room.
The gifts looked pretty, but
The gifts looked pretty,
George was curious.
but George was curious.
Could he make them look even prettier?
Could he make them look even prettier?
Here, this red bow would look much better on the green box,
This red bow looks better on the green bow,
and the name tags might look nicer on
and the name tags might look nicer on
different packages
a different package
too.
too.
A nurse arrived, and what did she see?
A nurse arrived, and what did she see?
A monkey! And he's making a big mess!
A monkey, and he's making a big mess.
Yes. A group of children crowded around the nurse.
A group of children crowded around the nurse.
They were all patients at the hospital, even though it was almost
At the pause, even though it was almost
Christmas, the children
Christmas,
were not smiling
the children were not
and were
smiling
looking happy.
or looking happy.
Come along, the nurse said.
Come along, picking Georgia. I'll better get you out of here before you can ruin everything else.
Picking George up. I'd better get you out of here before you can ruin anything else. A girl with a cast stared at George's tree.
A girl with a cat stared at George's tree.
Suddenly, she giggled.
Suddenly, she giggled.
Look, she said. It's my X-ray.
Look, it's my X-ray.
A boy laughed.
A boy laughed.
And there's the balloon from
There's the balloon
my room.
from my room.
All the children started chattering and laughing as they looked at George's funny
All the children were chattering and laughing as they looked at George's funny Christmas tree
decorations.
decorations.
Can't he stay for the party?
Can he stay for the party?
A boy asked the
A boy asked.
nurse.
We don't mind about the gifts.
We don't mind about the gift.
It'll be fun to sort them out.
It'll be fun to sort it out.
Please let him stay.
Please let him stay.
Please.
Please.
The other children chimed
The other children chimed
in. When she saw how happy the children,
When she saw how happy the children were, the nurse was happier too. I suppose he can stay, she said, if he promised to help fix the tree.
looked, the nurse looked happier too. I suppose he can stay, she said, if he promises to help fix the tree. George was happy to help.
George was happy to help.
The children helped too.
The children helped too.